Hi there, I'm Johnny Jenkins and welcome to this Raw News exclusive interview with your next Warwick Students' Union president, elected on Friday night with a pretty overwhelming share of the votes. It's Shinghai Dzumbira who joins me now. Hi Shinghai, very good to see you. And here we are a few days later, I suppose almost a week. Has it sunk in yet for you?
It's sinking in. We're in the process of it sinking in. It's good to be here, though. It's sinking in.
It was an interesting presidential race because, of course, you were running and you've been an officer, and you still are a postgrad officer at the Students' Union. And then you had the current education officer, Megan Clark, running on the ENE, the sort of left slate for this, and then some other candidates too. I think it was quite a hard one for us to call actually in advance. So that meant, I suppose, it was a bit of a surprise for you.
To be honest, I think I was surprised in the sense that I don't know. I went in expecting something, but did I expect to lose? No. But at the same time, I did expect to win. And I don't know how to explain that conundrum because you don't run thinking you're going to lose now, do you? So it was an interesting feeling because I knew that it was quite close. I didn't know who was ahead per se because everyone ran pretty good campaigns, some better than others in certain aspects. So in certain aspects, when we got to the end, it was pretty close, but I knew that I had a decent chance from what I was seeing with my social media engagement, and which was the only thing that I could gauge with what was going on my social media pages. Other than that, it was anyone's game, really. But yeah.
It was a social media election, but because we're not all on campus, and I suppose that made it hard for you and the other candidates because you had to find ways to engage people in your message. I suppose it was also quite hard for voters to not get sort of saturated with loads of different people posting in. Certainly felt like that at times, and I think it was reflected in the turnout, which was quite low in the election. That element of it being social media, we'll come to turnout in a sec. That element of it being social media, I suppose, made it a bit harder for you.
Yes, mostly because I'm not very social media inclined, just personally. I have an Instagram page, which I post in every few months, and that's about it. And before that was my Facebook account, which my sisters often tell me is not cool anymore. But so in terms of social media, it was never really my strength. So then I had to figure it out as the days went by. So I think coming up with the strategy in a way was very different. And especially for me, because I'm a person who's very, I work best talking to people one-on-one and having opportunities to talk to people. And because that in a social media space, that's kind of taken away from you. The question is, how do I let people know what kind of person I am? How do I get that out there? And I think that's always the thing, because social media can go anywhere and you don't know what kind of messaging is going. And then you now have to understand the demographic within the student body that you're aiming for and how best to reach them, etc. So there's a lot of marketing things that you have to catch pretty fast to understand the messaging that works for a specific group of people, who's likely to vote for you and where to find them on social media. Because I was saying to Lucy, it's not like when you're on campus, you know who hangs out in the chaplaincy, you know who hangs out in so you know where to find people, you know who's in the SU. And so if you want to find them, you go to a physical space. But this is social media. There is no such physical space. And I was like, oh my goodness, can they create an app where we have these spaces and we know where everyone is? So that's just the thing. And I know that students are over online messaging just in general because they live their lives online with academics. So sometimes it's difficult. So it had its challenges, I suppose.
And I think those challenges, which I'm sure all candidates experience, as I say, were reflected in the turnout, which very nearly, I think, didn't reach quorum, which is the percentage, I think it's 10% you need to get to in order for the election to count. It did reach it in the end, but that just shows how low the turnout was. Do you think that's because people fed up with it being online, or because perhaps they're fed up with the SU?
I think a bit of both. Part of it being online means that you are going to reach the students who are always engaged with your online platforms, whether it's the student union, whether it's otherwise. So in order to get to the ordinary student, you find that even with our work, you get them in departments. I was speaking to, I think, the library and in particular the PG Hub, and they said something. They said that when they have 10 people attend an event, they are excited. And that's to do with someone's personal development, let alone a student union election, which they sometimes don't know how it correlates to their personal lives. So I think there's that aspect. And I think there is the aspect where students don't genuinely see how the students union impacts their lives and why they should vote. I'll be very honest. I think the first time I voted in a students union election was in my third year. And that was because my friend had been elected the vice president of University, the Warwick SU, and I found out how much power people in these positions had. Before that, I didn't know, neither did I care. All I knew was at some point we have cardboard around the university spaces, and it makes the uni ugly, and there are people in your face, and that's all I saw it as. And so I didn't care. And so a lot of students just genuinely don't care, and they don't get how the students' union and the elections tie into their personal lives. So that connection needs to be made for students, really.
And I suppose it's a good time to point out that you've done an undergraduate degree, a postgraduate degree, you're the postgraduate officer at the Students' Union, and then you'll be the president of the Students' Union. So you've been at Warwick for, I mean, how many years?
Since 2016.
Okay. That's when I started sixth form. Wow. You say there that people are struggling to engage with the Students' Union. It's now your job, I suppose, to fix that. How will you do it?
That's big, isn't it? It's a big ask. But I think sort of strategically is looking at a lot of internal structures, and that's something that I enjoy doing. So I think we really need to look at our student engagement plans. How are we reaching students? What messaging we're reaching them, and what kind of student, what appeals to students at this time. I think we need to make sure that our messaging towards students at key points is very important. So especially when students are coming into university, that time when they want to know a lot of things is time to get them really introduced to what the students' union is, how it functions, etc. But not only that, we're making sure that internally our student engagement plans work towards what students want and need at a particular time. So catering our services to student needs and wants. And I think what I've come to accept is that students engage with the students' union at whatever level they desire to and whatever level is beneficial to their journey. And I think we need to create avenues and show in those areas they know that it's the students' union providing that. For example, when they're dealing with clubs, if that's how they want to engage, fair and fine, let them know and experience that in the best way possible, and let them know that the students' union is behind them. Same thing with societies. I mean, that's what I did. I was in a society, and that was my world. And so understanding how the students' union can help you as a society exec is important. So, and for academics, etc. So ensuring that whichever aspect a student may be interested in, we deliver well and that we're student focused, I think is very important. And also, I think having the team, I think there needs to be visibility for the officers in general, making sure that they're out there, they're visible, they're accessible, and students know when to reach them and what to reach them for. To understand their individual remits will be so important. You find that I think the first time I received any emails, well, to be fair, there was an issue with my email address with the postgraduate one, but I got a lot of emails towards like this year. And those are primarily from PGR because students don't really know that I can handle postgraduate education matters. So understanding the remit of the officers, understanding like having more times where they can come see you and having that visible, I think is going to be important to bringing us to a point of like importance because, yeah, we can be a bubble sometimes. We can, and we need to burst it. But yeah.
So that's the people that didn't vote in this election. Of those that did vote, a lot voted for a candidate called the Emperor. which I think is fair to say is somewhere between a joke candidate and a protest candidate. The identity of the emperor is unknown. Here at Raw News, we still don't know the identity. I don't know if you do, but it's a lot of people voted for this candidate, the emperor, and you often get these sort of joke candidates. But coming second to you, I think goes to show that a lot of people that voted in this election voted as a protest to the way either the students' union works or the way student politics works at the moment. So that's a challenge in itself for you, isn't it?
It really is. I found it interesting, and I wasn't surprised actually that the emperor came second. I would have expected the emperor to come first. It crossed my mind at some point, but it does show you where students are, and it's almost seeing the SU elections as a joke and taking it forward as one. And I think students would do that. I won't lie. I probably put the emperor like high up my priority list as well. But I get that sentiment that students have, and it is something that we'll have to deal with head on, and not run away with it, because at the end of the day, we are accountable to the wider student body. And I don't think we've done justice to that in the way that we ought to have this year.
We've got the whole officer team now elected, and I think it's fair to say politically it's a very varied team. So in terms of the full-time officers, none of the ENE, education not exploitation, the sort of left slate, were elected, which I think was a surprise to some. You've got two members who are formerly part of the Conservative Association. You've got people whose politics I don't know. There's a real balance, is what I'm trying to say here, among the political views of the full-time officers. And as somebody now that's in charge of managing these views and coming to some sort of agreement, do you see that political diversity as a challenge?
I don't actually. And I think this is where it helps that I'm an international student, because what that does for me, I come from Zimbabwe, and I was explaining to someone the reason it doesn't bother me so much is because in Zimbabwe, you really have one of two choices. You have a political party that's been in office since 1980 and has committed a lot of heinous crimes, human crimes. And then another party, which is like the only other option that never wins, but everyone wants to win. And so in my mind, every time I look at politics in this country, I always say it could be far worse, because I've seen far worse. I've been under the rulership of a dictatorship for a lot of my life. So because of that, I can kind of deal with any other opinions, far, few, and in between. And I think what needs to happen at that team building aspect and getting to understand each other as people, and beyond politics, because people, yes, their political views frame an aspect of their lives, but people are still people. They have real life experiences, and that needs to happen right at the get-go. And then also coming up and looking at the manifestos of the new team that's coming in and finding areas of commonality. And believe it or not, there are quite a few areas of commonality, areas of collaboration, and seeing if we can have group-based projects, and that will allow us to make a lot of progress as well. So it's going to be finding the points where we do get along, but then I don't believe that we should ever have one view, because I'm a person who likes to see things from every angle. And whether you disagree with me or not, whatever you're bringing to the table is going to help my arguments, is going to strengthen my argument or strengthen my case or give me a different perspective, and perceive things from it's just a risk assessment, really. And it's important that people know how to engage with each other with respect. I think that's going to be important, creating respectful, open environments where differences of opinions can be heard and can be respected. I think a challenge that might be there is some of the incoming officers may have heard about each other, may have interacted with each other about the past, and it's to let that go and actually work as a team, because that's the only way we're going to get things done. No one understands what you're going through as an officer apart from officers, and that's going to be very important. So that's kind of my thought process around that. Yeah.
It's interesting, and I think the approach is also quite refreshing. Have you got a group chat going already?
Not yet. like I told you, social media is not my thing, and I just want a break. I'm just waiting for the provisional results to be confirmed, and then we can actually make progress. After that, but yeah, I'm going to have to learn a lot of skills in this period, which is fine. A lot of reading to do, but I look forward to the challenge. I really do.
You mentioned there your sort of different approach as an international student, looking, I suppose, at Warwick from a bit of a wider lens. Do you think that international students have been supported enough over the past year or so by the SU?
We've started work, and that's a lot to do with me. I think the officers have come to know me as the person who always chimes in about international students. And what we've seen, I mean, just recently, the university has added another step. Before they kind of start telling students they will kick them out for not paying international school fees because they've been harsher on international students and they are legally required to do so. They've added an extra, more lenient step to work with students on fee repayments, things like that. Small things such as the offer in Roots grocery store, having African and Caribbean options is something that I started working with Roots grocery store. Like things that are big and small are things that I've started conscientizing people within the university and within the students' union about international students. I had to tell them that, hey, you do realize that I'm having to pay for my visa extension and go through this process, which is going to cost me thousands, whereas every other officer is just here. And that creates a barrier for international students taking on this job because it costs them money. What are we going to do about that? So I think even being an international postgraduate officer was a big difference for them, having to know that, like, for example, in September, I couldn't work full time because I was still on my master's course. I had to work part time, 20 hours. I had to tell them myself because they didn't know that. They didn't think about that. So I think I've been doing a lot of work to let them know that, hey, there are students who function like this. I think even with mitigating circumstances, there's so much work that's happened with the Dean of Students, the wonderful Becky Freeman, where I had to sit her down that, hey, some of us come from countries where the government can literally shut down the internet, go into the streets and kill people. Is that in mitigating circumstances? Do personal tutors know that's in mitigating circumstances? Do students know it's in mitigating circumstances? Did you know that just happened in Nigeria? Did you know that just happened in Uganda? Do you know that there's students that are impacted by this and they didn't have that in their minds? So they had to put that in. So a lot has started happening, and it's really just making them aware of the realities of international students that are so different to home students. And that has been something that has been near and dear to my heart, that I've been working on and will continue working on, because I think there's been a great burden on international students, despite the fact that we pay a lot, and people make great sacrifices to come here. And the least we could have is sometimes just being treated with decency, not being threatened with deportation at every second, at times where everyone else is getting offers of support. So that has been something that has been big for me. And there's still a lot of work being done, but I've seen progress because even by virtue of me just speaking about it, you find that the other officers are now conscious of it. And when they go into their meetings, they're thinking about international students as well. When we're talking about accommodation, I was talking about, hey, guarantors can only be, UK based. We're coming from, outside. What are you going to do about it now that you've taken away Warwick accommodation? And those are things that they hadn't considered before. So I think I've started a lot of important conversations, and we've made progress in some areas, and I'm doing a lot more for international students, a lot more.
Are you in the UK at the moment, or are you at home?
I'm currently in the UK. I'm in the UK right now.
Okay, so day one that you're in the office, you've got the chair, your desk says president on it, and hopefully it will be in an office rather than on Microsoft Teams or whatever. What's the first thing you do?
Probably dance. I like to dance. I dance a lot. But I think day one would be team building will be a lot of fun. I'd like to have fun on day one and get to know everyone, get to celebrate being back in the office, because that's what I imagine, because I've never really gotten to work. I think I've been in the office like 3 times. So I never got that experience this year either. So I think really just having time to celebrate, to get to know each other, and then get down to team building. I think team building would be like the foundation of everything. And I refuse for work to begin without team building happening. So I think that would be something big. But yeah, I'm going to have a good dance.
What song?
Oh no, Johnny! It'll be. I might post it. Maybe I'll post my dance. What song? It'll probably be something very like African. To be fair, like something Afrobeat. Yeah, that's what I can think of right now. But yeah, something along that line.
Once the dancing stops, there's many challenges ahead of you. I wish you the best of luck. Very good to see you today.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It was lovely to be here.
That's your next SU President, Shinghai Dzumbira, here on Raw News for our Women's Week special. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Across campus, online and on 12:51 AM. This is your student radio station.